We're live. What's going on, everybody? Luis Acevedo here, host of the Honest Hour and the founder of MOT Media and the co-host of MOT Today, which is live every Sunday at 12 p.m. This Sunday, we'll be doing the first one where pretty much everybody involved in MOT will be on a show together in person. So that's going to be pretty cool and pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to that. For a little more, I guess, like something new that we're starting to do here, because this is quite a bit of work to have this show prepared, to do the research and come up with the talking points, etc. Although a lot of the times I don't have anything written down, it's just all straight from my mind anyway. So we have added in the Cash App. It is my personal Cash App, but it will be going towards MOT Media. Pretty much all the money that we've made from TikTok as well on the main account, the MOT Today account, that has remained in the account. And we're basically just building it up because we want to make the next biggest media organization here and provide you guys with very valuable information. And that's the goal. A lot of media sources today, for instance, I was listening to the Alex Jones show while I was cleaning. I have a cleaning company, and so on Fridays I go and clean one of the clients' businesses. Anyway, so while I was there, I was listening to the Alex Jones show, and I must say one thing that I did notice from the music, from the tonality, and the topics, there's a lot of fear and anxiety that is induced by the show itself. It makes you very anxious and a little paranoid about what's to come. It doesn't really provide you with hope, it provides you with fear and concern. And while Alex Jones may provide decent and good information in some instances, the show is definitely something that induces fear. And that is the opposite effect of what we want to have here at MOT Media. We want to be able to provide people with the real hard truths while they are remaining hopeful and not fearful as to what's to come in the future. That's the battle here, right? Like, you want to be able to talk about the hard realities while simultaneously providing solutions and making sure people are inspired and hopeful and not fearful. And so I find a lot of content that is sharing a lot of these dark, hard truths about the world that we live in, oftentimes induce fear as opposed to hope. And so that's what we try to do here at MOT. That's what I try to do here at the Honest Hour while we cover some of these hard, dark topics. I don't want to leave people fearful. I want to leave people hopeful and hopefully provide some sort of solution, some sort of answer to these issues as best as I can. Knowing is half the battle, fear nothing. I agree with that completely. Knowing is half the battle. The other half is actually taking action. And so here we try to talk about ways that you can have some practical actions set in place. So with that being said, I want to jump right into the topics that we have to talk about today. First thing I want to cover here is going to be this video that I found from the CEO of Pfizer, or however you pronounce it, Albert Bourla, explains this new technology to the Davos crowd, and it is pretty eerie. Now, I know I just said we want to be hopeful here. We don't want to induce fear, but like I said, some of these topics, there's a hard reality that we have to face. And so right here, this is pretty interesting, pretty eerie, and what is to come down the line. So let me go ahead and share it with everybody here on Facebook, or YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all that good stuff. And then for you guys on TikTok, I will flip the camera around so you can see it. But this is a video of the CEO of Pfizer, or however the hell you pronounce it, talking about this new technology that they are coming up with currently And like I said, it is pretty eerie. It is next level stuff, pretty dystopian. But you know, let's just look at it really quick. All right, here's a video.
It is basically biological chip that it is in the tablet, and once you take the tablet and dissolves into your stomach, sends a signal that you took the tablet. So imagine the applications of that, compliance. The insurance companies to know that the medicines that patients should take, they do take them. It is fascinating what happens in this field.
Right there. So basically, what the guy is talking about is a trackable pill. So tracking with pills is the next thing that Pfizer is going to be coming out with, and he thinks it's a beautiful thing. It's a good thing, so that way they can monitor what their patients are taking, making sure they're taking the right thing. And so the implications of that are pretty eerie. But I guess the best thing that one could do to avoid that future is to simply stop taking these drugs, stop supporting these companies. I mean, start finding alternative health. And that is actually becoming a large movement in the United States. I actually think there is some data on that. I'll look it up right now. And so, yeah, I mean, really, there is no concern as long as you can find alternatives. Truthfully, the biggest issue, just finished my PhD thesis and cannot realize yet that I will never go to school again. So strange. Well, congratulations. What did you get your PhD in? And let's see, Freebird. Yeah, so there is what I think is happening right now. There's a movement to go towards alternative medicines. A lot of people are getting away from Western medicine, which is why I think the Davos elite are starting to invest in psychedelic companies and trying to make that more mainstream. That has been an alternative form of medicine for mental health and conscious evolution, that kind of thing. For quite some time, but now it's coming to the forefront of the mainstream. New methods of single molecules. I'm not sure you pronounce that, using optical tweezers. Okay, whatever. So there's no money in that, and so the Davos elite are working on making psychedelic drugs mainstream, and I think the main reason they're doing that is because they notice people are becoming more dubious to Western medicine. And they just look at all the things that have come about from it, especially when you look at the past couple of years, right? I don't know if this guy's being serious or not. But yeah, so in the past couple of years, people have noticed that Western medicine is not the best thing, is not the ultimate solution, and it actually is causing more problems. I mean, an interesting fact that most people are unaware of is, I believe it's in the top five at least, the top five leading causes of death in the United States and the Western world is medical professionals for misdiagnosis, poor surgeries performed, malpractice. All these things combined are in the top five leading causes of death in the United States and Western world. And so a lot of people are trying to find alternatives. And this is why I think that we're seeing a lot of alternative doctors talking about CBD, high school, certain methods, work with billions of molecules for narrowing it out as a reaction. Okay. Got some trolls in the comments here, obviously. We've had this the past couple of nights, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for the show, that we're getting some trolls in here. They don't like what I'm saying, and they're trying to divert the conversation. But anyway, so yeah, we're seeing this huge change in the medical field right now, and it's actually is it gets a little worse than what we're seeing there with the trackable pills, because today, well, actually, let me finish what I was saying. So that's actually what I'm thinking here. So you can look me up. this live was about. Sorry. Um, so the Davos elite, like I mentioned earlier, are working to bring the psychedelic drugs to the forefront. And so I think really the psychedelic drugs are going to have a negative impact on society. For instance, we already see this legalization of cannabis, which I do think that cannabis should be legalized. I do know that there's a lot of medicinal use cases for it, and and there's a lot of use cases for it, but there's a lot of people that abuse it, and there are a lot of side effects that are not talked about. Whether it be memory loss, that's a true thing right there. I mean, I know people personally whose short-term memory, working memory, is completely fried over the years of smoking cannabis. They need to legalize, which is exactly what we're talking about. Actually, is the legalization of psychedelics, and so really what you had to do to push the needle was to legalize cannabis. And then after that, there's the legalization of other psychedelic drugs, which probably mushrooms will be involved in that, and LSD and DMT and all these other drugs, which actually have a more negative effect on a person than they do a positive effect. Because these things, if you look at their history, there were typically ceremonies in which a lot of these natural psychedelics were used, but a lot of people are using this as a form to deal with their anxiety, to try to heighten their senses. Look into microdosing. There's a lot of people who do these drugs on a daily basis, so they're becoming drug addicts. So we're just switching the um, the narrative of a drug addict to become more accepting. And so I think the way that you do that is by legalizing cannabis, and then now you have this mass drug use on a scale that I don't think has been seen before, and you're just switching it from opiates to the psychedelics, right? Because the reason we were in Afghanistan and the Middle East was essentially to defend poppy fields, which then brought over the opium. And so now that cat is out of the bag, we're going to have to switch it over. And so that switch, I believe, is going to be into psychedelics, and then maybe harder drugs as it comes. And one of the things that we'll probably see from this shift is the further enslavement of humanity, because it'll propose as this, it'll act as this false spiritual awakening, right? Because you will have these trips where you think you'll see, as you can read or watch some podcasters talk about these machine elves from a DMT trip or other entities, but you actually have no clue what those entities are. First off, you're hallucinating. Like, nobody talks to a meth head when they're hallucinating and says, what did you see while you were hallucinating? And let's extract some wisdom from your hallucination from the meth head. Nobody ever does that. But every time somebody is going to do something with these other psychedelic drugs, they want to try to extract some wisdom and purpose from them. When in reality, if you're spiritual or not, I don't know, but they could be demons. They could just be straight up figments of your imagination that have no real utility in your life. And they're just feeding you with nonsense, and they're just your own insecurities or your own projections coming out and manifesting itself. Who knows what they are exactly, right? But they are looked at in our society to be this force of good, to provide wisdom, to provide guidance. And so what I think is going to happen is you're going to see the use case for false enlightenment. You already have VR headsets showing how to do meditation. So they're basically extracting you from the real world and putting you into this fake world where you then can meditate, because you can't meditate in real life. And so since you can't reach enlightenment through the natural path, you have to do it through the synthetic path, through the drug path. And so then this just props up their drug and medical industrial complex even more. It just has to shift its focus, because it depends on the individual soul as to where they're going to go, because we do have free will. And so what they essentially do is just go where your free will is going and try to trap it and imprison you and enslave you into one way until you start to wake up, shake out of that spell, shake out of that system, and then you go into another direction, and then they just follow continuously. And so this is what we see, and this is how humanity remains in prison throughout the years. It's just because those controllers, the evil ones, whatever you want to call them, are just shifting their focus as humanity wakes up to keep them entrapped, to make them feel as if they are elevating, as if they are rising in frequency or whatever you want to call it. But in reality, you're not. They're just 3 steps ahead of you on where you're going. And so that's what I believe is going to be happening with this whole shift in the psychedelic narrative. Now, obviously, there are some use cases for it. I'm not against them entirely. I do believe that people can benefit from them. For example, one good use case of psychedelics is getting people to quit smoking. There's like a 95 or 85, I can't remember exactly the percentage, but it's very high. It's between 85 and 95 percent of people who have a mystical experience on psychedelics who are smokers end up quitting after their first trip. So there definitely are benefits to these drugs, just like there are benefits to painkillers, but there are also negative side effects that come along with it that most seem to ignore, especially when it comes to psychedelics or cannabis. And we should be talking about these because they're going to become more prominent. There's a lot of science fiction novels that actually predict a future where most people are habitual drug users and they don't see anything wrong with it. And for instance, there was this one book in particular that I can think of. I believe it was called The Forever War. And in The Forever War, I used to do high doses, but not nowadays. That's good. Maybe you shouldn't do any. I'm not a doctor, though. Maybe, there's other avenues that could be done to alleviate you from whatever you're fleeing from in your life, because that's ultimately why people use drug and alcohol, is to escape something in their life. Anyway, there's this book called The Forever War, and in it, I won't go into the whole concept of the book, but while they're in the United States on Earth, they're pretty much anywhere on Earth, the Western world at least is where it was mostly covered when they were on Earth, because it's a science fiction book, so they're traveling all through the universe fighting this forever war because of the space-time continuum anyway, and time dilution. Anyway, it's a very interesting book. I recommend people read it. But the people there on Earth, everywhere you would go, they would pull out a joint of cannabis just like one would a cigarette, and they would smoke it anywhere, everywhere. And so I think that you're going to be seeing that more and more. Mushrooms more spiritual than escape. That's exactly what I was talking about. See, I don't think that they're actually spiritual. I think that they're more escaping. Like, how do you know that it's spiritual? How do you know it's not demonic? Demonic still could be spiritual. Or how do you know it's just not an hallucination? For instance, meth heads have hallucinations where they can see entities, they can see spirits, but nobody says that they're having a spiritual experience. Nobody tries to extract wisdom from a crackhead, or a meth head rather, because they know that they're hallucinating, they're going insane. But nobody does the same when it comes to mushrooms. And also, you're ingesting toxins that are actually harmful to the body. So if it's harmful to the body, how could it be beneficial to the consciousness? Now, maybe in some degree, in some level, it can have some beneficial aspects, but there definitely has to be a healthier way and a sober way to obtain the same spiritual experience that one experiences through mushrooms. There has to be. Logically, there has to be, because you don't have to take mushrooms to have a spiritual experience. I believe it makes you see deep thoughts. Have you ever tried? No, and I will never try it because I believe it is a weak thing. And I'm not trying to criticize you here, but I don't know why anybody in nature would actually take a psychedelic drug that takes you totally out of commission. It just doesn't make sense. Like, why would anybody in nature who has to fend for themselves, to be 100% self-reliant, do any psychedelic drug that takes you out of commission? I'm sure they have more mystical and spiritual experiences sober. Most people I know who are the most spiritual are actually the most sober, right? And so I'm not actually trying to criticize you here either, because I do think that there are benefits to mushrooms. I do think that you can have some positive experiences with them, that they can serve as somewhat helpful. But ultimately, I think that they're detrimental over the long term. and that they're more so a crutch and in a form of escape. Now, this isn't me trying to get on my high horse either. I have indulged in cannabis numerous times in my life. I like a good beer every now and then. So I'm not trying to say that I'm a purist here and nobody should do anything, but I'm just saying that these things are more so a form of escape, and they may have some spiritual meaning to them. I strongly doubt that because once again, I mean, like the most spiritual and awakened people I know, like literally the most enlightened and spiritual people I know on this earth are the most sober. They're the most sober. They won't do any of that because it is just a crutch. It may help you see one thing, but it won't help you see the bigger picture, and it ultimately slow you down from your spiritual evolution if that's what you're looking for. So who knows? Maybe it helps you see deeper thoughts. I don't know. There is a theory out there that it helps you see things that you wouldn't otherwise confront. But I tend to think that um, you are avoiding confrontation with something deeper in you than you're by doing those drugs. That's my take. And that's ultimately why I believe you see the Davos elite promoting psychedelics, right? So when you see the elite promoting anything, really, the global elite that are actually trying to harm us, enslave us, and in some instances, right? I have to be careful what I can say here because this AI, this algorithm all over the place is really good, and it'll start censoring you. And we know all about censorship here. So anyway, um, this push towards it, I think, is just it's harmful. It's not good, and so it's something you should be careful of. I think it's just the evolution of the medical drug industrial complex that we are witnessing right now. Now, in other news, what we're seeing here in the medical field, staying with the medical field, there's a lot going on in the medical world today. So, TikTok, you are not going to be able to see what I am sharing to everywhere else: Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. The only reason I wanted to share the other thing with you guys is because it was an interesting video, but I'm not going to continuously flip the screen around for you guys. So, you will have to deal with my soothing and may I say beautiful voice, and I should say narration, my beautiful narration of these articles. So this article right here continues on to this whole medical shift that we're seeing, and the World Health Organization is behind it, as well as the Biden administration. The title of this is Biden seeks new unilateral powers for WHO chief to declare public health emergencies. So, President Joe Biden's administration is pushing amendments to the World Health Organization governing regulations to give the Director General unilateral authority to declare a public health emergency in any nation based on whatever evidence he chooses. So, basically, this amendments that they want to add, which this meeting will take place, I believe, next week, will basically do away with the nation's right to say, hey, we do not want the WHO to be involved in our business. And the WHO can take information from other countries that are not affected by whatever said disease is plaguing the nation and determine a public health emergency in other countries, right? So that's a huge issue that we'll be seeing here. And so this was actually something written in January, but it's going to be up for consideration next week by the UN 75th World Health Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland. And so I'll read a little bit more of the article for you guys. It says, in a January 26th letter to a virtual meeting of the WHO's executive board, Lois Pace, Assistant Secretary for Global Affairs of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, described the importance of equity and equitable access to medical countermeasures and the negative impacts of misinformation and disinformation related to the pandemic. We agree that we all must do better. So basically, they're trying to eliminate any dissent from medical tyranny. And the quote continues, the United States led an inclusive and transparent process to develop the decision, as we are mindful that updating and modernizing the IHR, which is the International Health Regulations, are critical to ensuring the world is better prepared for and can respond to the next pandemic. And so this is actually perfect timing for what we're going to loop into the show here, because the title of the show is Monkeypox, the next pandemic. And so we'll continue a little bit here to give you guys a little more information as to what these amendments actually entail. So one of the proposed sections that will be removed if what the United States wants to pass through is passed. Now, mind you, on a quick side note, the passage of this at the next meeting, if it happens next week, does not solidify it into law because it has to be passed by the Senate. But what we do know is that these people don't really care about the law of the land. So that is something to consider here. Anyway, back on the proposed removal of a certain section within the amendments of the WHO. So in Section 9, they want to remove Section 9. And Section 9 reads, consult with and seek to obtain verification from officials in a nation in which a health crisis is suspected before making any public declaration. The same amendment provides that WHO may take into account reports from sources other than notification or I can't talk right now, from the nation with a suspected problem, as I was mentioning earlier. And so there is another thing that is proposed to be changed, and that is Section 5. And Section 5 reads, early warning criteria for assessing and progressively updating the national, regional, or global risk posed by an event of unknown causes of sources. And so then another amendment that would change is under Section 10, and that reads, in the event, and this is probably the most detrimental to freedom and tyrannical thing that we have seen in this proposal by the United States. Mind you, once again, this is by the United States to give the World Health Organization unilateral power over public health declarations. And so what we saw originally with the unicorn, aka the vid, is a test run of what is to come. We actually have a comment here over on YouTube. The death of America began the day Biden declared the mandates. I think it began long ago, but that is definitely something to consider is what Biden did. But I do think that the death of America has been going on for a long time. But anyway, so this right here, the removal of this particular section, if this is passed, will be the most tyrannical thing and pretty much give the World Health Organization a global power over every nation. And it is very, very, very disturbing. And I'm not trying to share this to be fearful or anything like that. I do want to provide hope, but there are definitely things that we are seeing right now that are concerning. And so I want to be upfront about the situation. And so one of the best things that we can do is ultimately, if you're spiritual, pray. There's always that, right? You can pray if you believe in a higher power. That'll definitely, be beneficial to you and your family and your life. That definitely has some effect in the real world. There are actually studies done that meditation and prayer are beneficial. They do influence the real world. Scientific studies showing this. So anyway, the other thing that one can do is participate in your local politics. But right here is probably the most tyrannical thing that you will see when it comes to this new proposal that the Biden administration wants the World Health Organization to enforce. I'll read it. It's the removal of Section 10. In the event the nation with the suspected problem doesn't cooperate within 48 hours, quote, when justified by the magnitude of the public health risk, immediately share with other nations the information about it. Okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this isn't it. There's another one actually. Let's see here. Where is it? I thought this was it. Sorry, guys. I thought that was the amendment, but it is not. Let's see here. It's somewhere in here. Huh. I know it's somewhere in here. Give me a second. Okay, I can't find the exact wording in here, but I did read that basically what they are going to do, I believe it's in section 10, and I thought it wasn't here. But anyway, it will give the World Health Organization the power to do sanctions on public health, restriction of certain benefits, restrictions on economic, like financial needs. All those things could be applied to nations who did not obey the World Health Organization. Now, something else that most people are not talking about is the fact that they will be doing surveillance on wastewater as well. So, right here, you have the budget includes $2.47 billion in mandatory funding for the CDC to include enhancements to domestic sentinel surveillance programs, expansion of domestic and global wastewater surveillance. This is something that the Ice Age farmer had talked about a while ago. And basically, they want to surveil the sewers for any diseases to make sure you're not eating bad things. And this will be one way that they'll enforce no eating of animal products in the future. Now, obviously, I think that these will mainly be in the smart cities. So as long as you're not in a smart city, as long as you're becoming self-sufficient, working on localizing your supply chains and having a strong community, you shouldn't be affected by this, because I think that these kind of surveillance state items, this Internet of Things that they're trying to create, will primarily be in smart cities, and those that are in smart cities will be mostly affected by it, but they may not care. Anyway, that's just something to consider in regards to this proposal and what it actually does. Now, the timing of this is really interesting. The reason I say it's very interesting is because of the fact that we are now on the cusp of what appears to be another outbreak. And this outbreak has to do with the monkeypox. So let's look into this a little bit, okay? So there's a couple theories as to where this monkeypox came to be. But before we talk about all of that, let's just cover some of the basics here, okay? So there's this article. Where's this article at? I got it saved. Actually, let's start it off. No, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to start this off, guys. I'm shooting from the hip right now. I have a lot prepared for you, um, especially in regards to this, but I didn't really think how to structure it. So I guess we'll start with this. All right. So there is a outbreak taking place globally, and interestingly, a lot of it is not coming from Africa, which is supposedly the breeding ground for this particular outbreak, if the outbreak is real. Because as I've covered before, I don't know that the V word, the viruses, I guess I'll say that, I don't know that they actually they're contagious. And the reason I say that is because they're dead. And how can something be dead and contagious simultaneously? That doesn't make any sense. And it's specifically to your body that these things occur, and they act as a detox because your cells need to detox. So who knows if this is all nonsense, but let's just look at this narrative, okay? So the article that I have up here, for those of you on TikTok that can't see what I have, it is an article written today from Zero Hedge, and it includes pretty much every place that has been affected by the monkeypox. So the first case of monkeypox was discovered in the United States, in Massachusetts, but the first case was actually discovered in the UK, and there was an outbreak there. But now there's been another outbreak. There's been another case suspected in the New York City. So NYC reports first suspected monkeypox case as the WHO convenes an emergency meeting. So as there's this outbreak of the monkeypox virus, the WHO called a meeting to determine its severity. Now, combine that with what we just covered, what the Biden administration wants the WHO to be able to do, and that is to declare a public health emergency and basically overrun every nation's public health department and have them be the de facto leader, one step closer to a global government. So let's look into this a little bit. So, officials in New York City say that they are monitoring the state's first suspected case of monkeypox in a patient receiving at the Bellevue Hospital, where preliminary tests have been performed to confirm the disease, according to the Wall Street Journal. So far, 87 cases have been confirmed worldwide, and 57 are under investigation. It is important to note, too, the mortality rate of this particular disease ranges from 1% to 15%. This particular variant, from what I've been reading and discovering, has the mortality rate of 1%. However, we don't know if this variant is known because there are some interesting things about it, as I just mentioned before. There's this global outbreak, and it appears that the African continent is not affected by it, which is odd. It is very odd, but we'll jump into that a little bit later. So let's first continue on this article. So as we can see here, it gives us a chart showing us the nations that have confirmed cases. So Spain has 30, Portugal has 23, the UK has 20, Italy 3, Canada 2, Belgium 2, Australia 2, France 1, Sweden, Germany, Netherlands, and Israel, I believe, has its first case. This chart doesn't show it. Our suspected case. So let's see here. Let's keep going down. And now the disease has also been reported in, as the other countries that we mentioned, monkeypox, as they said, is a contagion rash similar to chickenpox, and it's also similar to smallpox. And we also know that Bill Gates and a lot of other elites have warned of the next pandemic being something of a smallpox. As we covered in one of the TikToks recently, Germany said that they want to do simulations of an outbreak from a leopard bite of smallpox. And there's this video in particular that I want to show you guys that actually predicts the monkeypox being a bioterrorist weapon coming out in May of this year. There's actually a chart breaking it down. And so we'll get into that in a little bit. But let's finish up this article here and talk a little bit about what's going on this outbreak. So let's see here. So it talks about what it is. Symptoms usually appear within 5 days of infection. That includes muscle aches, chills, fever, swollen glands, exhaustion, and of course the pus, the little pulsations or whatever they are, the pustulates. And so there are a bunch of theories as to what that is too, going all over the forums, which we'll dive into. I find quite interesting. So the World Health Organization is convening over this severities of it. So there's roughly 12 countries that have reports from this, and the CDC confirmed at least one in the United States. And there's a quote here from an infectious disease expert, Daniel Bausch, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He says, quote, "I'm sure that ultimately this will be the largest outbreaks of monkeypox that we've had outside of the epidemic areas in Africa." And then he goes on to say, "I don't think there's reason for panic. I don't think we're going to have tens of thousands of cases. We'll see. Maybe that is the case. But we do know that there's been a narrative pushing for another pandemic for quite some time." Here's another professor, Anne Ramon, I'm not sure, professor of epidemiology of UCLA and a world-renowned monkeypox expert, told the Telegraph that the vaccinating close contacts of confirmed cases, also known as ring vaccination, is a good option for health officials. She added that the public should not, at this stage, be concerned. Quote, "For your average person, I would not be overly alarmed. If you have a rash, contact your health provider. A rash that is unusual or looks like monkeypox," she said. "If you think you've been exposed to somebody who has monkeypox that has this kind of rash, I would would identify yourself and talk to a healthcare professional. So the vid was not a major threat to the U.S. Subprime contained, but now we shouldn't be worried about the monkey virus, the monkeypox virus. And so this is something that has slowly been spreading across the United States, not really the United States, but the world. And it's quite odd that it really has not been spreading through Africa. Now, let's talk a little bit about the origins of the monkey virus, because the monkey virus, I keep referring to it as the monkey virus. I do think this is an important piece of information here. So let's share this because it's quite odd. It's quite odd. So I read a comment earlier that this was actually lab made, and there are a bunch of other pox viruses that have been lab made. There's a mouse pox, there's a horse pox, and some have even speculated that you would be able to reproduce a smallpox in the lab. So right here is a abstract of a study or a paper on the monkeypox. So it says the monkeypox was discovered in 1958 during an outbreak in an animal facility in Copenhagen, Denmark. And this animal facility was a colony of monkeys. It was a colony of monkeys. So in 1958 in Denmark is when the monkeypox virus was discovered. Now, this is the first time it was discovered in Denmark, but it's known in Africa. And it's not even coming from monkeys, it comes from rodents, right? So experimentally, the monkeypox virus can infect animals via a variety of multiple different inculcations. Sorry, excuse me. However, natural route of transmission is unknown. Well, in this particular case that we're talking about now, they're saying it's potentially transmitted through homosex. So, yeah. But they don't really know how it's transmitted. So the thing that I find odd is that this outbreak was in Denmark, where it was first discovered, but it's most common in Africa, which leads me to think that maybe this was lab made and then passed along into the African continent, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong entirely, but that's pretty interesting. So that's a little bit of background as to the monkeypox. I did find that quite interesting. Now, let's look into this right here, this article specifically from an African scientist who said he is baffled by what is going on with this monkeypox. So let's pull this up here. So, an African scientist baffled by monkeypox cases in Europe and the United States. So, right here's a quote from the doctor. He says, "I am stunned by this. Every day I wake up and there are more countries infected," said however the hell you pronounce his name, a virologist who formerly headed the Nigerian Academy of Science and who sits on several World Health Organization's advisory boards. This is not the same. This is not the kind of spread we've seen in West Africa. So there may be something new, which then suggests that this could be made in the lab. Or there's another theory, guys. There's another theory entirely. So let's look at, first off, the first popular theory. TikTok, you'll be able to see this too. This is a video. I want you guys to see it. So this is a video that was taking place. Let me actually make sure this is sharing. This is not what's sharing. So let's switch this over. TikTok, get ready. This is another interesting video that we got here that shows an interesting theory as to what is going on potentially. And then we'll show a timeline of what's happening. And then we'll dive into another theory that may get us banned. It may get us banned to show this other theory, but it's important that we get this information out. So here's this video. want you guys to check this out. Let me make sure it's going to be showing. Yep, boom. So this video was in 2021.
There are growing questions today around a new and deadly outbreak. Scientists determined that this monkeypox virus was engineered. With limited antiviral drugs and no known effective treatments, countries around the world are struggling to control another pandemic with already devastating effects.
Now, I don't know if I have to add any commentary to this because of copywriting, but let's just, I added some commentary right there.
Seeing far fewer cases in countries with governments that took early and decisive action.
And some international experts are urging the WHO to adopt a phased approach to warnings.
All right. So that video was from 2021. 2021 is when that video was shot and filmed. Now, the first thing I would recommend everybody notice during that video is that although it was fake, everybody knew it was fake. It was a staged event. They said this is a fake scenario. Do you see how real they made those news anchors and the news disseminating the information, how real it all looks, right? So next time you're thinking the news is telling you the truth, just know they can very easily fake it. Now, there's this thing that I want to go over with you guys, this photo that ties that video in pretty well. Let's see here. Right here. Let's zoom in on this. All right, now let me share this with everybody here over on YouTube and Twitter, Twitch, everywhere. Check it out, check it out, check it out. All right, so I'm not exactly sure where this came from, but I found it in the forums today because I was diving deep. So, there's a lot that you can get from certain news organizations, but if you really want to get down in the dirty, you got to go on some forums. That's where you find a lot of gravy, really. So this is where I found this at. So as you can see, May 15th is when it starts. When did we start seeing news? I think around May 15th. Let's look it up. When was the first case? When was the first case of monkeypox in the UK? May 5th. Okay, so it's not to a T, but the May 12th. I'm sorry. So May 12th, it was confirmed, but the timeline is pretty close. Anyway, so May 15th is allegedly the bio attack, and then on June 5th, we then see the monkeypox outbreak of 1,421 cases and 4 deaths. No international warnings or advisories. Key issue: the international alert and warning systems, benefits of and need of early risk assessment. And then January 10th, 2023 is when you then see 83 countries affected by it, 7 million cases, 1.3 million deaths. The monkeypox engineered to be vaccine resistant. National response effects of early action, international supply chain challenges. So these are all apparently the moves. And now I believe there was something similar with the vid. I believe it was Operation Lockstep, something like that. that was released that showed pretty much exactly what they were going to do to a T. So who knows if this is similar to that. But there's definitely a narrative being built up around it. And if you think people are sick and tired of what happened with the vid, you are wrong. You are absolutely wrong. People love it. People worship it. And they are looking for something else to go to. So you're just going to be seeing these ping-ponging of events from Ukraine to pandemics to food shortages. So people are going to be all over the place in what they care for. But the most important thing that an individual can do is to remain hopeful, pray, and to work on building up your local supply chains. And that includes medical supplies and things like that. Learning how to take care of yourself as well on a medical level as best as you can. Finding people that can do that. That's very important. Very important. Let's see what this is. All right, that's the video we already showed. So that is one theory. There's another theory. This theory may get us banned, but we're going to share it anyway. Let's find it here. Here it is. All right, guys. This is another compelling theory, I believe. I don't know if you can read that. So basically, the other theory is this is an adverse reaction to the jabs, right? Because of this right here, and then you have those pictures of blisters. That's another theory. That's another theory of what's going on. So I won't dive too much into that just because I don't want to do everything. I want to do everything we can not to get banned and censored. But yeah, there's something going on, I think, and it's something to definitely keep your eye on. I mean, the United States just ordered 13 million vaccines that can help prevent against the monkeypox variant, or virus rather, as well as getting antiviral treatment drugs for it too. They did this like a week ago. And they're spending like $299 million with Bavarian Norton, I believe is the company, the pharmaceutical company, to get these vaccines out. And the vaccine should be coming out in 2024, 2025 is the time frame for the monkeypox vaccine. But if we remember that chart that we were just looking at, if anything holds true with it, you're going to be seeing a lot of death by 2023. Now, this isn't for me to be, fear-mongering, anything like that. Like I said, I'm very dubious of viruses themselves, if they're contagious, from what I've learned. And this could just be another tactic for lockdowns. This could be another tactic for control. It could be another excuse for the supply chain. It could be another excuse for the economic disasters that could be coming. I mean, for instance, we're entering into a bear market. That's official with the S&P 500 dropping 20%, I believe. So who knows? Who really knows? Maybe this is going to be framed as a Russian attack, a Russian bio attack on the Western countries because of what's taking place in the Ukraine. Who knows? Just food for thought. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the Honest Hour. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and consider supporting so that way you can help us, because we want to do good research for the show. We want to be prepared for the show. It does take time. We do have families to feed here, and I think that we are providing you with some value. So if you feel the same way, the Cash App is in the link. I believe it is Luis Acevedo 27. Trust me, I will not be taking the money and running. This is to help build up MOT Media, so that way we can become a prominent voice of reason in these chaotic times. So thank you, guys. There will be no Honest Hour tomorrow, but Sunday you will be able to witness MOT Today in all of the MOT members at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be sure to tune in and show your support. Much love. Peace.